Well, that was weird.
Are we live?
Taking you on a little trip.
Do we watch a little video clip and now we're live?
They keep changing this platform and it's just so damn confusing now. I don't know what the hell's going on, I'll be honest with you. Well, here we are. Welcome to the Building Wealth and Health live stream. We're back.
We're back.
Whatever that just was, there's something in my porter apparently.
Yeah.
Or did you see that too?
I saw it.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah. It was happening.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Dr. Matt, we're back for the fourth agreement of the 4 agreements. So there it is. I put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Look at that. And it's really confusing because it says 5 and then it says the 4th agreement.
Like
but
chapter
pay
5.
No mind. Yeah, I think it's chapter 5.
Mm-hmm.
The 4th agreement. So, sir, how are you? I hear you rattling something with ice in it in the background.
Yeah, I got a little bourbon and ginger cocktail for happy hour.
So tell our viewers how does bourbon and ginger affect your building health? How's that working out? Is there something we don't know? You want to share anything with us?
I mean, not really. I think there's some benefits, I think, to ginger as like a herbal digestive and inflammatory support, things like that.
So I've been told that. Does ginger actually settle gut stuff?
Yeah, it's pretty good for nausea.
Okay.
So pretty commonly used for that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a lot of good digestive support uses and inflammation as well. A lot of people, like if you have migraines, it helps to take ginger. It can help particularly certain types of migraines, and not all migraines.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Katrina I don't know if had one recently.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really kind of weird. Do you would take that as it's coming on, I would assume?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I would do like actual ginger itself, not like ginger ale or
ginger. Eat the actual like shaved ginger, ginger root. Yeah,
or make a tea out of it or something like that. Or
have you ever taken a ginger root and just like bit into it?
Yeah.
Just crunch into that sucker.
I mean,
spicy.
It's not really palatable, super palatable that way. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely do that. It's pretty strong. But yeah, most of the way, I mean, the traditional way to take it is to make what's called a decoction, which is you basically slice it up and then boil it, and you boil it for about 15 minutes, and then that's like your tea. As opposed to pouring it over like hot water over it, which you could do too. You could do that too, but if you boil the ginger for a while, it actually helps it be more. It gets more of the active ingredients and things into the water.
Gotcha.
So,
I like the taste of ginger. I just a lot of people don't, but I even have it like with sushi. They'll have like the shaved ginger on the side.
Yeah.
And I'll take a bite of that before I switch flavors, which always seems to help with your palate.
Kind of clean the palate a little, yeah.
Yep. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And it goes with bourbon.
I bet it does. I have partaken in ginger and bourbon before. I'd certainly, Yep. Jameson and ginger, and there's lots of ways to do that. I'm just having a porter. For those of you watching, see that? Costco, as I was telling Dr. Matt before we got on air. Costco. It's pretty good.
Decent.
I don't really understand. Yeah, like it's weird. I can't really figure out who actually makes it says Little Mo, but then there's like 8 different names on it. I don't know. It's good.
It's probably Kroger or whoever owns
Kirkland.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's their own thing.
They make everything.
It gives you pairings on the side, so it says like you can. Oh God, I'm gonna butcher this, and I should know this because it's French Gruyere cheese.
Oh yeah, Gruyere. Gruyere cheese. Yeah.
Oh God, come on, French. I took so many years of French.
Gruyere
cheese, vanilla,
nice,
ice cream. Actually, I have had porter with ice cream. Our good friend Scott, we have done that before. We've taken a good porter, like a really good one, and poured it over some vanilla ice cream. It's pretty epic.
Like a root beer float, but with porter.
With porter instead. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's it's really not building any sort of health.
No,
I'm not sure why we're
little stress management. That's good for your health,
mental health
to a point. Then it's pretty detrimental.
Oh yeah, just do one of those. If you're going to pour it over ice cream, you need no more than one scoop of ice cream and one porter. You're fine. You're good. That's all you need.
And get good quality ice cream and
get good quality ice cream.
Don't
make sure you drink water. Yeah. Hydrate. Oh yes, sir. Well.
Yeah.
I was texting you today. Did you happen to see what was going on today in the market?
Some. I know Powell was speaking. I listened to a little bit of that.
His same rhetoric.
Yeah,
it's like a broken record at this point.
Yeah, I didn't really say too much. Didn't really say anything that I'm always just intrigued by like the way things unfold after those sorts of events, like just watching the market or watching what people. It's so interesting just to sort of see the reactions and how. I mean, I don't really know a lot about it, but it's you see what goes up, what goes down, what people think.
Yeah,
it all means. So
the SPY just shot straight up. Which was kind of interesting to me for a couple different reasons. Right after he announced they're going to be tapering starting this month, quantitative easing has begun. Let's see if I can pull this 5-minute chart on SPY, and then
look at that.
We're going to be tapering, picking, and then right about here is kind of like there's other stuff going on. So SPY, this is the S&P, this is the ETF. And there's a lot of other things happening, including all the fun correlations with the meme stocks, including AMC, GameStop, and the other ones. So there's a lot of ETF action that's happening within those two, and that actually created this next move. But yeah, it was interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they always try to put the best face on things, and I don't think there's a lot of, I don't know. I'm not really optimistic about certain things. It's interesting to hear him discuss the economy and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's doing what you're saying it's doing. So.
Right. And I mean, I'll be honest, my 2 cents on all of this is just, we're in a free market kind of system and we're really not.
Right.
I just wish there'd be less federal intervention, especially in times like this. I'm not going to sit here and downplay it and say it's just let it go as is. But at the same time, I'm talking about the last 12 years of federal intervention. I'm talking about, the Federal Reserve and all the central banks and the control behind it. And, this is, if you want to talk about the bond market, the intervention that's been played in there. And when we talk about, quantitative easing and tapering, it's them slowing down the buying of bonds basically in general. And it's just to simplify it. So here's your reaction on TLT, which is the 10-year treasury. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but speaking of mental health, this is going to be an interesting 18 months, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And just making sure that people are aware of. I think it's the time is now. The time is now for sure to start learning more about what's happening in your capitalistic system. In this country, understanding what's, I mean, more and more people have jumped into, I think, trading in the markets in general, from like March 2020 until now.
Yeah.
And so some people have really taken an interest and education in some of this. The people that haven't are never going to at this point, I think, in this, and that's my opinion. I've preached to many people, I've talked to many people about, you know, the importance of understanding things and other ways to make money, as we talked about many times on the stream, is what to do, and how to make other ways of making income. This is certainly one of them. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's very robotic and, you know, it's unmanipulated. It's certainly, we're seeing that right now. I mean, we're in plays right now that have to do particularly with manipulation.
Yeah.
But understanding, you know, the effects of someone literally like Chair Powell talking, and what that means in your everyday, you know, your day-to-day life, and what that means for your retirement and so forth. It's really important to understand, at least on some general level, what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've intentionally made it so complicated, you know, that the average person, I mean, I would put myself as the average person, you know, who, you know, learning as I go kind of on some of this stuff, you know, and it's just, there's so much that's, you know, it's the lingo and then you put in like all the computerized trading and AI and I mean, all the manipulation, like you're saying, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's wild. Trying to get your head around some of it and not get, just not get overwhelmed and just quit, you know? So,
yeah, I mean, you're right. On some level, they have tried to make it overly complicated, and anything that you're not particularly, you know, an expert in or a, you know, jack of this trade kind of thing is going to be confusing, but there should be a level of, you know, a learning curve that's not too steep where you can dive in on some level and start understanding what the particulars of something. And no, it's become more and more complicated every decade.
Right.
And for unintentional reasons too, but for the people out there that are listening or going to watch this on the restream, I really encourage you to maybe stop looking at me and rolling your eyes when I start talking about some of this stuff, because it's more important than you think it is. And I think that's going to be seen more over the next 18 months to 2 years for people that haven't been paying attention, but have heard me and rolled their eyes. I think they're going to be more in tune with like, oh my God, this happened to me, or, you know, now I have to do this with my mortgage, or what's happening with my, you know, and I've done a lot of videos on a lot of things that are coming up, you know, just it's simply understanding why you can't buy toilet paper in your store tomorrow. Why that's all happening, you know.
It's a tricky, isn't it? Because I think there's a place where you can be really like in fear and really like coming at a very, you know, a high level of stress around it. And then there's also the need just to sort of have an awareness of what's happening and being prepared, being, you know, taking proactive, you know, making proactive decisions for your overall well-being, you know, I think is smart, you know, I mean, just like, I mean, in my world, you know, I kind of relate to that more like, you know, maybe it's, you know, it's doing the workout or it's doing the, you know, eating well, you know, it's, you know, you're just being aware of how these things can benefit you. Just, you know, and I'm not doing it because I'm scared of this or that. I'm doing it because I want to, you know, just be on top of things. And so,
yeah. And I think that's, the reason I try and whoops, see, there we go. The reason I try and like explain a lot of these things to people that I know is because it's important for them on some level to understand what's going on, but it also helps them kind of move forward. And like you were talking, the things that you do in your day-to-day life have to do with you bettering yourself, you know, and I think that really ties into what we're talking about with this fourth agreement and always doing your best. And doing your best with whatever you're putting your hands into or you're stepping into. And I mean, I preach with my kids all the time. They make fun of me. I mean, I've even done as far as just them cleaning things or sweeping the floor. And it's just, I've had this conversation with you.
Yeah.
They do things around the house to earn money too. And we come in, we inspect their work. This is kind of the walkthrough inspection at the end of their work. And it's like, you still have all this to do. Sorry. And they get upset sometimes. And it's like, but you didn't put forth your best effort.
Yeah.
And the reason behind doing stuff like that is because why waste your time or others if you're not going to put forth your best effort?
Right.
Because you're going to come back and have to, you didn't sweep the floor properly. You didn't use the broom right. There's a bunch of stuff still here to sweep. You thought you were done. So guess what? You have to start over. So now you've created even more work. And it's just like, if you just did if you did what you could do, the best you could do, then the result will be there, whatever it is. And I think that's imperative.
Yeah. He talks about always do your best as kind of the integration of the other three agreements, I mean, obviously not at every moment are you, completely, in integrity with your word. And, you're not always not taking things personally or making assumptions, so, but, doing your best, being committed to always delivering the best you can at that moment. And that moment's going to change constantly, so you're not necessarily beholden to a particular thing, but other than what is your own, it's like all on you, right? It's like your best. And I mean, as a dad, you've got your, for sweeping the floor, you've got your standards, right? But at the end of the day, it's more about your kids just not doing their best, and it calls your attention to that. It's like, okay, you could do better, like, and how do we engage in that ourselves, right? Like, how do we tap into that ourselves, because, when you're an adult, obviously there's nobody like, looking over your shoulder necessarily and saying, hey, you didn't sweep the floor right.
Right.
Unless, it's your wife or something, but, but, I mean, even then it's a different standard, right? It's more about, and I was thinking about this the other day around like all of these agreements. And I mean, there's so many different ways to come at these things from different philosophies and different people talking about them in different angles. But like, I think what at the end of the day, it comes down to for me is like being able to, really, it's what in my immediate sphere, all of these agreements, it's like what I have to work with, right? It's like my own, because, I look at the world around me and I look at all the stuff happening and it can be mind blowing and just frustrating and, scary. And I mean, all these different things, right? But in my own space, there's also this place I can get to where it's like, I am handling this. And the more I handle this, then I can handle this. And then I can handle bigger. Right. And so I think so many people try to like handle the bigger without starting with, the basics, right? Like the simplest, the simple things at their own level.
Every person's different and every situation's different. Every environment's different. I mean, that's what he was talking about in here. And keep in mind that your best is never going to be the same from one moment to the next. Everything is alive and changing at all times. So your best will sometimes be high quality. This is funny because at other times it will not be as good. When you wake up refreshed and energized in the morning, your best will be better than when you were tired at night. Right. And that's why for me personally, I work out first thing in the morning because I'm a morning person. Right. And I'm ready to go. By the end of the day, if I was to try and work out or do something, depending on what it is, I'm not going to have my best performance.
You won't do it. Yeah.
I'm just, you can gear yourself up to, like when we used to play sports, even in high school.
Yeah.
End of the day, as a younger person, you could still kind of get up there and make it happen. Adrenaline's flowing, whatever. But for me, I was always, and I am better in the mornings for all of that stuff. Some people are not like that. Your best will be different when you're healthy as opposed to sick, or sober as opposed to drunk. It's very true.
Cheers. Yeah,
Cheers.
no.
It's only one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, and there's also a lack of judgment that's he talks about in there too, you know,
Right.
as far as, you know, not that we don't, I mean, judgment's a subjective thing, I feel like, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a real like negative self-talk and negative kind of aspect that can be part of that, right? Like beating yourself up, you know, about it, as opposed to like compassion for like, hey, you know, and then you're back with your word. It's like, hey, I said I would do this, but last night wasn't my best night, and this is what happened.
Yep.
I did my best that night, but this morning, obviously that wasn't my best. So, or whatever, right? You start to integrate all of those together. And it's just a better way to engage with people.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we're all our own worst critic, right? We're always very easy to judge ourselves on what we did, but at the same time, I think we're always the best judge of our performance too. If we really like pay attention to and be honest with ourselves about, I mean, I just had this conversation with my son the other day, and it's the whole thing is, do you think you put in enough effort to do well on the test? And only you truly know that, right? You can look back and say, could I have done more? And you have to ask yourself that for real. Like, I don't know if I could have.
Yeah.
I honestly think, now there may be ways to change the way that you study or work out or whatever, or play or whatever it is. There may be ways to like change that. But in the course of action that you had, do you think you put forth your best effort in that situation? Yeah. That's like what he's talking about too, is like every situation. Now you could change the way you do that and alter it.
Yeah.
Try better next time by doing something differently. But we're always the best at saying, if you're honest with yourself, you go, no, I could have done more for sure. Or no, there was absolutely, I gave everything I had on the field. I was done. That's all I had. And sometimes it's not as as good as somebody else, but that's not what this is about.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's just a very, looking at trying to be a healthy person walking through the world, without having expectations that are detrimental to your experience and really setting you back, but also not just being paralyzed with doing nothing either.
Right.
And trying to kind of walk that line of, okay, and like you said, only you know these things, and there's no other. Like, that's why I think it's so important to teach kids this kind of stuff, because after a while, there's no one else to, like, no one's coming to save you and do this for you anymore. No. Maybe when you were 5, they would, but when you're 12, it's different than when you're 5. When you're 20, it's different than when you're 12. When you're 50, it's different than when you were 20, I mean, and so, are you willing to, are you able to understand that and to, do your best with wherever you are. I mean, like a 13-year-old's best is not the best of a 16-year-old, and
right.
There's mental and emotional development issues around it, but it's the best for what they were.
It's the best at the moment. And,
absolutely.
And you learn from yourself to better yourself. That's the whole point anyway. Like if you're getting better in that situation each time as you get older, that's just part of the growing process. And I mean, that doesn't ever stop. So, and that's the thing I think people miss too, is like, well, I'm 35 years old. I there's no way I can like continue to create a better situation for myself. Well, that's not true at all. I mean, I know 80-year-old men and women that have learned something brand new. I mean, our parents are
totally,
if they're paying attention, and my parents all the time talk about that. Oh, I learned a new thing about myself, or I learned something, I could do better, or whatever it is, or a new skill. Because they're making the effort to, doing the best for them. So, and that's the same thing like you talked about with your own health. People can be honest with themselves. If you're if you're in a situation where Dr. Matt's working with you on something and, you know, you come back and see him and he's kind of working through, did you do this? Did you do this? How's this going?
Right.
Well, I didn't do these
Right.
things. Well, then you
Right.
didn't do your best. So you can't get the result that you're looking for. If you've done all of those things,
right,
and the result is not what you're looking for, then we'll change the way we approach
Right.
something. Right.
right.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's like, you may have studied your butt off, or you may have played, you know, you played your ass off in a game, but you didn't get that result.
Yeah.
Well, let's practice differently, or let's study differently, or, you know, whatever. But if you know how to push yourself and put yourself in the right situations and do your best, then that's the positivity you can take and grow from that. Right. And that's the part.
Yeah. I think there's interesting dynamic around like I would separate out the idea of like the process from the results, because I think the results are important. I mean, especially if you're, I don't know, a game or health, or, you know, you obviously want to have good results, but, you know, results can be achieved multiple different ways. And, you know, by doing your best it's not always about the actual results at the end of the day. It's just about the process of that. And I think, you know, if, you know, because I think sometimes we're so results driven, and that can be helpful, but it also can be, I don't know, detrimental at the expense of others and, you know, other things too. Right. So it's not just about, you know, winning the game or getting the A on the test, or, I don't know, changing some numbers on your lab test necessarily. I mean, that's obviously kind of what we want, but, you know, how are we engaged in the process? How are we, you know, how are we approaching it and going into it? And are we, because, you know, it's like I tell, you know, with health, there really is no destination. And so, you know, if we can leave aside the actual, there's no there to get to, right? It's the process. Obviously there's markers along the way that we might try to achieve, but the end of the day, it's like, you don't get out of here alive. So, you know,
that result is not going to happen.
Yeah. So what is our, and it's funny. I mean, just as an aside, I mean, that's almost like medicine today. That's the goal, right? That's the end result, is not to die.
Well, that person didn't die.
Well, exactly. All of our metrics of success of whatever it is, our interventions, our treatments, our whatever, is basically people not dying, which I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, like, just interesting to note that. But at the end, like, that's an awful metric, because nobody actually ever, you know, we all are going to die. Right. So I guess the, you know, my point is just about the process along the way, and it's being clear that, you know, there's nowhere to get to, but I want to have the best experience I can along the way, you know, and what does that look like? And if people are doing their best, like legit doing their best, I think their experience is going to be exactly what they need. To take them to the next experience that they need. And it may not be,
you grow and learn from yourself in doing that. And yes, there's a positivity that comes with, regardless of, like, oh, I thought this would happen, but it didn't. Well, you know, if you're good with yourself, saying, well, this is the best I could have done. And I mean, that part alone feels good. Right. So you're getting somewhere with that for sure.
And if, you know, on the flip side is, you know, when you're not. And so it's like, well, all right, what are you going to do then? You know, are you going to, either we could complain about it, or we can, you know, make our, you know, choices a little better.
So. And that says it right there. I mean, regardless of the quality, keep doing your best. No more, no less than your best. If you try too hard to do more than your best, you will spend more energy than is needed. And in the end, your best will not be enough. When you overdo, you deplete your body and go against yourself, and it will take you longer to accomplish your goal. But if you do less than your best, you subject yourself to frustration, self-judgment, guilt, and regrets. So just do your best. There you go.
I mean, it sounds too simple, doesn't it? Like, you know, like, It's got to be more complicated.
Yeah, you want to make it more complicated. But
We
that's
do, huh?
That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just think that this is, I mean, this obviously number 4 kind of summarizes the other 3 agreements, but it's basically telling you to, as you're working through these 3 agreements, you know, your end goal is to, you know, associate number 4 with all of them. You just tie them all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's yeah, the first 3 agreements will only work if you do your best. Don't expect that you will always be able to be impeccable with your word. Your routine habits are too strong and firmly rooted in your mind, but you can do your best. Don't expect that you will ever take anything personally. Just do your best. Don't expect that you'll ever make another assumption, but you can certainly do your best. This is all saying these first 3, you're going to screw up.
Right.
No matter how you're focused on them, you're going to screw something. You're not going to have, like we were talking about, separating the results from the process. There's two things to pay attention to. One is paying attention to the agreements with yourself. And then the other one is sometimes you're going to get really great. You're going to get the results you thought you perceived you're going to get. And sometimes the perception of what we expect is never going to happen. Like at the end of, like you're talking about in medicine, at the end of the day, well, it's about survival. I mean, we're in this situation, right? We keep talking about this. We're in this situation right now. It's about survival. You're not going to survive.
Right.
There is an end to this. No, like everyone has a different timeline, but there is an end. The result is exactly the same for every single person.
Right.
It will end at some point. It, as we know it here in this space, is done.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, no matter how good you do.
Right.
You could, yes, some people live until they're 110 years old for various reasons. Not always because they're doing their best either. Sometimes their body's doing their best, but they're not even, mentally they're not there. But that it still ends at 110 as opposed to the person that's 70 or 30 or whatever it is. The result is the same. You're going to get the same result. So it's just like, how are you with yourself in this situation with these agreements?
Right.
Can you agree that you're good?
Yeah.
And that's agreeing with yourself, not somebody else.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, like you said earlier, we're like our worst critics and so much of the time. And I think there's a lot of ingrained behaviors and belief systems that we kind of get born into and taught very easily that, we're not enough, that there's something wrong with us, that we have to overcome stuff. And, there are things like that. But I think at the end of the day, like we're talking about, like being, being okay with not being, just being okay with where you are in the moment and being okay with, doing your best.
Right.
And if you can honestly say you do your best, what else is there? Like who's going to say no? Someone might be like, yeah, no, you're not.
Right. But if you're used to talking to yourself about it and agreeing with yourself, yes and no, I did. And overall, you're comfortable with the fact that I am, and you can be honest with yourself, then it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't the outside world then becomes so minuscule,
right?
As when someone comes up and says something to you, it literally just brushes off of you.
Yeah.
You could even laugh it off sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like
you don't even register it.
I mean, have a good day. It's just, there's nothing that's going to shake you at that point because you only know you're answering to yourself and your expectations and where you are. And nothing else really ends up shaking you. And there's a point where you can get there and people, if you can get there, you realize that. And it's pretty eye-opening because you're just like, other people outside of that look at you and say, how are you able to just ignore that or let that go or laugh about it?
Right.
It's because you literally tell them it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key point right there. We take on so much, but we could have multiple ways to approach this and talk about this whole idea. But so much of how we experience ourselves is not anything that's really coming from us. Mm-hmm. And we give it a lot of power. We give it a lot of space and energy. But like you said, so much of it, almost all of it, has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And it's, you're the one who gets to say what's true for you and what is, and so, maybe our next, I don't know, I just thought of this as you were talking about that. There's another book. And I was actually just thinking about it earlier because I wanted to kind of reread it. I think the book was written in like the mid to late 80s. Maybe more recent than that. I can't remember, but it has, it's called Breaking Free from the Victim Trap.
Yeah.
And it might be another interesting book to, highlight some points for people on in another live, because I can see it. I can see how it can impact health. I can definitely see how it impacts wealth. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things that people have around, the dynamics, and it's actually very similar to what we're talking about, right now. So, when you're doing your best, you're in the state of understanding your own, what's yours and what's not.
Yeah.
And that's about energy management.
Right. Yeah. It's just, yeah, exactly. It's just controlling that energy around you and the flow. It's just like we talk about with money and being energy. And I was actually having that conversation with somebody today, and it just seemed like there was this breakdown with him where I'm trying to explain something, and it just kept coming back to, well, I can't do that.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, you can. And it had to do with like, trying to make more money as an investor. Mm-hmm. And all I can do is this. And I asked him, I said, what do you mean all you can do is this? Is that because you only have that much money to put somewhere? Or, everybody has a budget, obviously, if you're responsible. Mm-hmm. Or you don't want to, there's a huge difference there.
Sure.
We talk about, you in order to just like, energy flows, it's got to go out and come back to you. It's always move. It has to be moving constantly. Mm-hmm. Energy doesn't stop. If it stops, it's dead. Right. When your energy stops, you're no longer here in this environment. Right. That's it. And it came down to him saying, I don't want to. And I said, why? And he said, because I got to hold on to it, because if I put too much out there, I'm not going to have it.
Yeah.
And I said, it's exactly the opposite of that. It's exactly the opposite of that. When we get into like worrying about, I don't want to spend that much money on something, or I don't want to because he apparently has a hard time with spending anything. And it's okay to be responsible with it, but the understanding of going out and coming back. And I was explaining to him, like, when you go out with a group of people and you get dinner, are you the guy that just says, oh gosh, let's figure out to the penny how much just I owe? Because there's ever been a situation where someone has just bought meal for the whole group, whatever. He's like, oh yeah, there's plenty of times where that's happened. There's people that make more money than me that do that. And I always feel like I can't do that. And I said, you can't, or you won't. It's the same situation with, let's just say buying options contracts or putting money out there. You can't, or you won't.
Yeah.
How much money do you have allocated per month to trade? And he told me.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, how much? And this is the beginning of the month. How much do you spend? Well, I'm counting last month too. And I was like, no, it's November. How much money it's this much money. All right. Well, you could put this much into this right now because we've analyzed what's going on, and this is how much you could literally get back. That makes me nervous. There you go. But if you don't put any into it, nothing's coming back to you.
Right.
So what's the point in spending a couple bucks on something just to make 10? Why spend any?
Right.
If you're looking at, okay, this is where I need to make my play, but I think it's too expensive, so I'll go further out and make a play here. Why? Well, because it's cheaper. Nope, that is the wrong way to invest. You don't just go and like, well, I want that house to invest in, but it's too much, so I'm going to buy that house. That house needs more work. It's a shithole. So you spend 30 on it, but you're going to end up, you're going to putting another 50 or 60 into it, or you could just buy the house for 100 and leave it alone.
Yeah.
Same thing with like cars, where people are like, well, I will only spend like $3,000 on the car because blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But this thing's going to break down on you in like 3 months.
Totally.
Go spend 10 and be done.
Yeah.
It's going to come back, right? It's going to come back to you. And that's the hardest thing to do is
it is
understand that you got to, in order to get it, it's got to be put out there and comes back bigger.
Yeah. 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 It's not an easy, it's not an easy thing to really wrap your head around, because I don't think it's really an intellectual exercise. I think it's actually a kind of a deeper thing. Like, people, you kind of get it or you don't.
Right.
And you get it because you've experienced it. You don't get it because you read it in a book or someone told you. You understand it because I always reference, every time I get stuck in any of those sorts of patterns, because I do at times, I think about the trip I took to England when about 20 years ago. And I had literally no idea where I was going or what I was doing. I had a couple of like touch points of where I was going to land, but I didn't know anybody. I had a few things, right? But nothing was really
just
planned.
A young, naive Dr. Matt out there.
Yep, totally. And nothing was really planned. Nothing. I had a few plans, but hardly anything was really in stone. And I always reference that because the way that trip like worked out and the way like it just showed up for me was incredible. Like the people I met, the timing of things. It wasn't, I'm not saying everything was like perfect, but there was, things that just, but I had to put myself into the situations and engage with it in order to actually have it happen, and I probably told you this story, Shane, a bunch of times, but I went to the Ryder Cup and when I was in England, and I literally had no tickets. I showed up, I somehow got a hotel and it wasn't even really that close to the town. It was in the town that was close to the golf course, but I got a room and I show up at this place and I'm like, all right, like the day I showed up was the first day and I was going to be there for like a couple of days. And I was sitting in the room by myself. I was I was tired from traveling. And I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And I ended up going down to the front desk and I asked the lady, I said, I'm looking to go to the Ryder Cup tomorrow or the next day. How do I do that? What would you suggest? And because this was before like you could just jump online and find everything out. You could get online, but it was like I had to go find a computer and a cafe, and I didn't have
56K dial up 20 years ago.
It wasn't quite that bad, but yeah,
not like it is now.
Not like now. And so, I actually had to. But see, for me to like, get up and go downstairs and have that conversation was actually a pretty big deal for me.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't really know, but let me ask around and maybe I can find something for you. I'm like, okay, great. So I went back to my room and like, I don't know, 10 minutes later, she called me and she's like, there's actually 2 American gentlemen in the bar right now. I'd be happy to introduce them to you. They just got back from the Ryder Cup today.
Nice.
Like, all right. So here I go down, 25-year-old me or whatever, how older I was, she introduces me to these guys and I end up getting a ticket to go. And, it just was an experience of moving energy, of not sitting in my room, not waiting for it to happen, but just engaging, asking that question, going down to the bar, meeting people I didn't know, all of that, and I feel like that. So I always come back to that space I was in when all of that just flowed. And that's the kind of experience that I can create all the time if I'm able to actually get to that place. And it's not something that is always there. It's there more now than it probably ever has been.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
but you can reach out for that. Like
Yeah.
there's moments in life where you
Yeah.
can, like, if you they're burned into your brain and you can reach out and you can use them
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Little touch points where you can, those imprints are there that can really harken back to that. So yeah, and I think that's really where that energy and that movement and just, you know, like you're saying, you got to put it out for it to come back. And
yeah, and that's all part of like this. We get in a situation where if we don't do that, we can make excuses. Like that's kind of like where I was kind of leading into what this guy was talking about, is like there's an excuse there, right? Totally. Or something's going to happen, and I think it comes back to judging ourselves or thinking others are going to judge us, right? And it's that, like you said, that victim mentality, and don't play the victim, right? Oh, those things lined up for you because you weren't like, oh, poor me, and by myself. Oh, poor me, I can't figure this out. Or poor me, I'm too young to do this. Oh, poor, it's like,
yeah, I never even had any of those thoughts.
No, and then look how it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those experiences where it's like, wow, you know, like every step I took was perfect, for lack of a better word. It didn't mean it was easy.
Right.
You know, there was actually quite a few bumps in the road around some of it, but it wasn't, you know, a big deal really. So you just sort of moved with it and let that flow.
Yeah. And you were doing everything you could for what you knew, right? You just, you know, your best was there for everything that you were going to do. And you just, even just going down and talk to the front desk, and I'm like, I want to go to the Ryder Cup. I'm going to figure this out. You know, the result may be, dude, you're not getting tickets. Are you kidding me?
Totally.
You want to go tomorrow?
Right.
No. The lady's like, I mean, I don't have the answer, but I can certainly point you in the right direction. And next thing you know, you're following Tiger Woods around. Right. You know? So
yeah, it was pretty cool, you know, and I think, and we've all probably had experiences like that. If you really sit back and think about it, you know, when I think it helps that I was out of my comfort zone, that I was out of my normal routine. I was in a place where I almost had no choice, you know.
You didn't have a place to shelter you or someone to help.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could have stayed in, I mean, I don't know. I was in Birmingham, England. Like, I don't know what the hell's in Birmingham, England. Like, I even still don't.
Right.
You know, like, I'm like, what would I have done if I hadn't gone? I have no idea. Like, I would have, I don't know. I would have.
There's a lot of pubs in England, buddy.
I would have found something to do, but it would have been, you know, anyway, it was just an interesting, it was just a really cool experience, you know, and just, and I do think part of my, you know, cause it's taken me a lot longer and a lot of other, I mean, and you know this better than probably anyone, you know, the difficulties, the challenges I put myself through around a lot of things, but, you know, since then even, but it's, you know, I always can touch to that and, you know, realize how energy actually does flow. And, and I do think it did help, though, like I was saying earlier, to be out of my kind of comfort, like
for
routine,
sure,
because, you know, I had nothing to lose. I had no, you know, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was cool. So.
Yeah, it's a very, the more situations you can have, hello Snowfluff, the more situations you can have that way throughout life, and the more you can more situations you can put yourself in throughout life, the more you can trust in that situation.
Totally.
You know, and the more, like this guy was talking about, the more times he can put out and say, I'm gonna commit to knowing this is the trade or this is the position play I want to be in, and I'm right. I've done my best. I've done my research. I've done the whole thing, and I put it out there. And you know, you're looking for a result, obviously, but you continue to do that. You start realizing you're trusting in yourself, and you watch the energy kind of do that for you, right? And that's what I was telling him. Like, money is energy, and you have to just understand that's what it is. It goes out there, and it may not come right back to you. It's not like this
Yeah.
this play may be like, oh, I lost money. Well, see, there you go. It didn't come back to me. No. It's not about one thing
Right.
at a time. It's
Right.
about the whole situation
Right.
over and over and over again.
Over
And
and over
so
again. Right.
if you don't judge yourself or tell yourself you were wrong or you're not smart enough to figure it out, or
Mhm.
you can't do this on your own or whatever it is, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fall, you're going to have those situations. But
Yeah.
if you trust in the idea of you are doing your best, and that doesn't mean you're perfect every single day,
Right.
but you're doing your best overall,
Right.
and you're incorporating these things into your life, then the end result,
Yeah.
you'll see the positivity
Absolutely.
overall, and you have that energy that sits inside of you. That's the positivity. And so it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
we have bad days, we have good days,
Yeah.
but it's
Yep.
it's understanding the situation is not one at a time. It's like
Right.
talking about being able to draw from that over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think once you get those experiences, like you said, it just sort of, it can snowball a little bit because you start realizing, okay, that didn't really work out, but that one did. That one
Mhm.
did. This is, oh, okay, here's, and it just starts to like refine and refine a little bit, where it's a little like some of the edges get worn away a little bit. It's a little smooth. It's a little smoother. It doesn't mean it's perfect. I mean,
But the aging process, like
Mhm.
like a good wine or something, it becomes
Yeah.
better, right?
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah.
like things settle into where they need to be
Mhm.
to make it better. You just got
Just
to
get
wait.
more and more comfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can look back, and I think it's also about almost like seeing, like, the end story of that Ryder Cup trip, their experience was essentially almost getting stranded at the golf course because they stopped running the shuttle buses. And
That's right. I forgot about that.
yeah, and so nobody was leaving, and they couldn't get back to the train. And I literally was in this, the Ryder Cup's over, that for the day, and I'm standing in this field parking lot with 1,000 other people
Uh-huh.
waiting to try to get out of there. And I'm like, I was there for like 4 hours, before I finally, and I didn't know a soul,
Right.
and
Right.
so I'm like, and it was not fun. Like
Yeah.
it was not fun at all. I was exhausted. I was,
Just
I
want to go
didn't,
lay down.
nobody had like a cell phone to like call an Uber or anything like
Mhm.
that. This
Right.
was, and it ended up fine. Obviously, I got out of there, but man, it was so, but I just, it was just, it was a cool experience, and I think back
Mhm.
on that, and like, like I said, I draw from that a lot, or I draw from other, other things where it flowed as well. But like, that's one of the real first ones for me that I really remember. Like, wow, like just engage in life and it flows,
Yeah.
and do your best and it will flow. And
It
like,
it always does.
mhm,
And just it's like we keep coming back to the trusting in the process of all of it.
mhm,
And some days, listen, it's really hard to trust in it. And some days you're
mhm.
just like, am
Yeah,
I
and you
just
may
trying to
not.
convince myself of
Right.
something, or
Yeah.
is this true? And you have to reach into those moments,
Mhm.
and it's not just one. It's like
Yeah.
you have several of those. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is what happens if I do this. This is what happens
Yeah.
if I do this.
Yeah.
If I'm true to myself, I'm doing my best. Today may not be the day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Tomorrow may not be the day. Next month may not be the day. But if you continue to
Right.
judge the fact that you're like, maybe
Mhm.
I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm slow, maybe this is the way my life is destined to me. Maybe I'm supposed to be alone. Blah 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 blah. Just
Right. Right.
you
Right.
can go so far down that line that you forget about those experiences, can't draw from that, and understand it's coming back. It's coming back. Just
Right.
sometimes you
Right.
got to be more patient. Sometimes it happens right away.
Right.
You know, you can
Right.
draw from those too, and just understand that was different than usual.
Yep.
Um, but if you just we have to get, and it's hard. We have to get away from like really being
Totally.
critical of ourselves.
And I think like you and I have always been in that entrepreneurial space, right? Like
Mhm.
we've always never really wanted to work for someone else. We've never really wanted that to be our lot in life. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but you and I have always, and that's led to us trying things together that have failed. That's led to us, it's led to all kinds of things, you know, and for both of us. But I'm always so grateful of like, when I really like get clear about just the, whatever's inside of me that just like keeps moving in that direction. Cause I don't have any other way of doing things in a way. So, you know, and it wasn't always, you know, well, definitely wasn't always easy. Still isn't at times, but you know, it's like you're saying, you're able to have that movement forward. So, but
that is the energy I'm looking for. See,
get a little food,
put it out there.
Put it out there. It comes right back. There you go.
The homemade guacamole comes right back to
nice.
it. Nice. Well, I wanted to read two things before we wrap up because it kind of ties into like what we've been talking about. And this is like, it really wraps up the fourth agreement too. As far as, you know, my understanding of, you know, when I read it. And again, if you guys haven't, you need, I mean, what is it? 20 some pages.
Yeah. It's tiny. It's a small book.
I don't even call it a book. It's like a document, right? Document on life.
Little pamphlet.
Pamphlet. Exactly. Yeah. Like we were talking about with the judgment, it says, so if you fall, do not judge. Do not give your judge the satisfaction of turning you into a victim. No, be tough with yourself, stand up and make the agreement again. Okay. I broke my agreement to be impeccable with my word. I will start over again. I am going to keep the 4 agreements just for today. Today, I will be impeccable with my word. I will not take anything personally. I will not make any assumptions, and I'm going to do my best with all of those. And then it says, do not be concerned about the future. I'm talking about certain people, and there's the guy I'm talking about today. I'm pretty sure you're listening. You're just hovering. This is exactly what I was trying to tell you earlier. Do not be concerned about the future. Keep your attention on today and stay in the present moment. Just live one day at a time. Always do your best to keep these agreements. That's what we're talking about. And soon it will be easy for you. Today is the beginning of a new dream. And that's the energy.
Yeah, I love it.
There you go.
I love it.
And that's what that means. And listen, like we talked about, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it makes it more understandable and more relatable if you can pull, like if you're talking about pulling back from, you know, things in the past, if you can pull from these 4 things and just say, all right, time out, start over. Just repeat those things and then try again.
Right.
And that's the doing your best part anyway. It's just doing that. So
just doing that, your best. Yeah. And it goes back to one of the conversations we had even, you know, a while back about integrity. You know, it's like, you know, you're not always going to be in complete integrity, but you can put yourself back in integrity and be true to your word and just keep going. Just keep going. So yeah, I love it. It's always good to hear this stuff over and over again. And the more you hear it, the more it sticks.
The more it sticks, the easier it is to use. And then the easier it is to use, the easier it is to get through day-to-day stuff and understand what it really means and what's important, what's not, you know, seeing stuff down the road and trusting in that. And that's really important.
And I like that how you summed it up there, that part about, I mean, being in the present moment, because that's really, you know, when we get out of those 4 agreements, it's really because we're not in the present moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's easy. It's super easy to do, you know, living in the past or living in what could happen and what, you know, you think is going to happen and all of that. And I just think, you know, that doesn't serve anybody long term.
No, not at all. Not at all. It definitely doesn't serve yourself and doesn't create any sort of momentum in what you're trying to get to and look for. So
nope, not at all.
Nope. All right, Dr. Matt.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks.
Good stuff.
Always enjoy these chats. And
for sure.
Thanks everybody for joining us, listening.
Yep. That's our 4 agreements. I know there's actually a 5th one. We'll probably come back to that at some point. But there's your 4 agreements. Don Miguel Ruiz is the author of the 4 agreements. And like you just saw on the screen, that there's a PDF version. You could literally just, if you're old school like me, you could print it off your computer and read it. You know, you can read it on your computer. You can go support him and buy the book. It's on all kinds of stuff, everywhere. Amazon, anywhere you want to buy something, it's there. Don Miguel Ruiz, 4 agreements, good stuff. I highly encourage you to implement that and start understanding what those mean. Go back, watch the stream, and pick up some tips. Maybe we had some tips. I don't know. We had some tips throughout there. Sure. Something to pick up. Yeah. Even just from our own crap.
A little bit of wisdom we've gleaned along the way.
I like to think we're throwing a couple pointers out there once in a while. You never know. If anything else, you'll know that ginger and bourbon are good for your health. And I'm just quoting Dr. Matt, and that's what right. It is.
One of the old naturopathic doctors, you would always say that everybody needs at least one vice. So life's too short not to have at least one vice.
Yep.
So
just pick one that's,
I think he smoked and drank though. I think he had 2, but
try and pick one that doesn't cause long-term effects. I mean, not that alcohol doesn't, but there's some of that they're slower moving. I would say cigarettes are probably not a good idea, no matter what.
Yeah, I think
pick a different vice.
He was one of those guys that lived forever, I think. Anyway, so
yeah, sometimes that happens. Right on. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the lurkers. Appreciate you guys viewing. Yeah. If you are watching the restream, hit that like button on the way out. Certainly subscribe to the channel. There's all kinds of stuff going on this channel these days. Dr. Matt has his own channel and his own website, so make sure you check him out there. He also works for Quicksilver, really cool company. Go jump on that and take a peek at that. A lot of interesting things there. Like I said, hit the subscribe button, ding the bell so you know when we're going live again. We'll have many more conversations on building wealth and health that will help you throughout your endeavors on all levels.
On all levels.
And like I said, we're both entrepreneurs. We know how that goes, and that's what this channel is all about. So thanks for joining us, guys. Dr. Matt, enjoy your evening.
Yeah, man, you as well. And we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
All righty.
Later.
Bye, guys.